In today's video, we're going to be talking all about nature-inspired door hangers, talking about adding leaves and florals to your designs. So if this is something you feel like you've struggled with, maybe you can't find the right style of flower you want to paint, I'm hoping that today's video gives you a little bit of inspiration and confidence to move forward with your project. First, let's talk about how you choose the right kind of flowers to add to your design. It depends on the time of year that this design is intended for. So if we're talking about winter, you might want to go with flowers that stay bloomed in the winter. Magnolias are usually good, lots of greenery, poinsettias even, and I've got a few different poinsettia designs that I want to share with you. If we're talking about spring, then it might be tulips or marigolds or daisies or any of those flowers that you see popping up in the springtime. If we're talking about summer, it could be dogwoods, sunflowers, and then the sunflowers are really good to lead you on into the fall because you see sunflowers and a lot of fall decorations. Those are a late blooming flower. Another great fall flower would be chrysanthemums. You see those a lot. And we've taught projects over the years, both in our Painters Clubhouse membership and on our YouTube channel, for how to paint different kinds of flowers just like this. The style of flower that you paint is also something to consider. Do you want your flower to be more whimsical, kind of cartoony, or do you want it to look more realistic? Now that may depend on your painting skill level, and I'm guessing you're probably a little bit more at the beginner level of that. If you're not, then you're probably not even watching this video. So if you're a little bit at the beginner level of painting and you want to paint an easy flower, the whimsical, cartoonish flowers are probably a good place to start. You can create these flowers by simply laying down a base coat of color and then outlining the petals and adding little accents with a thin round tip brush to give it more of like a highlight or an accent. You can even add fun elements to these types of flowers like stripes or polka dots or even leopard print to give them a little bit of personality and dial up the whimsical factor. Now, if you're going for more of a realistic floral look, maybe you've advanced beyond beginner and you're ready to try doing realistic looking flowers, it's going to be important to incorporate multiple shades of green into your greenery, your leaves, and things like that. It's going to be important to use multiple shades of pink if you're doing a pink flower, or maybe even add a little bit of red for some depth. Shading on your flowers is going to give them more of a realistic sort of look. But if you look at a flower in nature, a lot of times it isn't just one solid color. It's usually got a couple of other streaks of that color or even a burst of another color streaking through it. Think about tiger lilies and birds of paradise. Flowers like that are very vibrant and have multiple shades of colors running through them. When you're painting flowers and greenery, you want to be able to add some kind of depth to the design. Even if it's a whimsical design, you may want things in the design to appear further back from the flowers. Like the greenery, you may want it to be in the background, in which case you would need to do a darker green in the background and then layer on a lighter green to be in the foreground. And by doing this, you'll be able to create more depth in your design. Now, when you're painting flowers, there's a few different brush types that you may want to consider. The first is your angle tip brush. This is going to allow you to create those really nice pointed tips on your leaves or your petals. It's also really great for shading because you can put one color on the toe of the brush and another color on the heel of the brush, and that's going to allow you to blend those two colors together beautifully. Next up, you may want a filbert tip brush. This brush is shaped like the tip of your finger. It's curved on the end. I love using this one for any sort of rounded shape, so a flower petal would be easily done with a filbert tip brush. Next up, you're going to want to have a round tip brush. This is great for adding little details like vines, for like creating the overall shape of your flower if you want to kind of doodle it out first or create kind of the outlines of your leaves. And then depending on the size of your leaves and your flowers, you might even want to do some details like outlines and things with a brush like this. The next type of brush is a liner brush. You can probably barely see the bristles on this brush. That's because they are super thin and very long. Brushes like this work great for doing very fine details. So I would use this for the veins on a leaf or for creating some very thin vines. Now I want to show you a few different projects that we have done inside the Painters Clubhouse and some pictures of designs that our members have submitted that really bring to life a lot of different floral styles. First up, I've got this design by Sandy McTeer. She taught this in the spring of 2024 in our membership group. If you notice, there is a lot of detail work that goes into these beautiful daisy flowers. She used a really cool honeycomb type pattern for the center of the flower, and then she added the tiniest of little white and black dots along the edge of the flower to make it look like pollen. All of these things, plus the shading and depth that she brought to this design, really make these flowers look like a beautiful cross between realistic and whimsical. Next up, I wanted to show you these flowers painted by Christy Hawkins. She has been a guest inside our Painters Clubhouse as well. She has a really bright and whimsical floral design that she creates. She likes to call this like a messy painting style, and I really love it because it's so approachable for the beginner painter. So this tutorial exists inside the techniques area of our Painters Clubhouse. And so anytime one of our Clubhouse members wants to paint flowers on a design, they can go right to the techniques section of our membership and watch a video tutorial like this one showing them how to paint flowers. I had to show you how inspiration really turns into art with this design that Linda Helser submitted in the Clubhouse. She was creating a home porch leaner for her home, and the flower that goes in the center of the porch leaner, she wanted to paint it blue like some flowers that she saw when she went hiking. And so she painted the center of the flower yellow, and then she added the beautiful blue color to the petals of the flower, and it perfectly mimicked those flowers that she saw along her hike. Back to the poinsettia that I mentioned earlier, this one was taught by Maria Martinez inside of our group. And I really love how Maria accented these poinsettia flowers by adding little black lines around the petals, around the leaves, and even the centers of the flower. It gives it a really fun, cartoony, sort of whimsical look and is very approachable for the beginner painter. Now, one of our members, Miss Linda Helser, has been painting with us for a while. She took this same design and she put her own little spin on the flowers. She changed up that center flower to be a little bit more of a coral look, and then she really took it another step further by doing a shading technique to create a dark shadow on one side of the petal and a highlight on the other side of the petal. So instead of using the black lines like Maria did, she left the black lines off and accented the petals with shading and highlights. So as you can see, this design can be painted a couple of different ways depending on your style and your skill level to give it a completely different look. I hope today you've been inspired by everything we've talked about involving florals and leaves, and I hope this gives you confidence to try some of these techniques in your own painting. If you're not sure where to start, do like I said and start with a base coat on your flower of the color that you want, and then choose a darker shade and a lighter shade to add some more depth to the petals. If you struggle with stuff like this, check out some of the other videos here on my YouTube channel. There are lots of different projects, especially in the spring, that I paint where I'm painting flowers. So find one of my old tutorials where I'm painting a spring design with flowers, follow along with it, and you'll be inspired to create yourself. Happy painting!